Today we're back with another tier list for patch 14.23, which is a longer patch than usual before the final one of 2024, with patch 14.24 on the way soon. And then it's the new season that's coming in early January 2025, with the Noxian invasion taking over the Rift with tons of exciting changes. Like the new objective Atakan, new feats of strength mechanics giving one team huge Noxian boot upgrades, and plenty of other new stuff to get stuck into. For now though, we've got until the first few days of 2025 to grind and climb as high as we can to reach our ranked goals, making it the ideal time to refine your mains, pick your pool and lock in for the rest of the year. So let's get into it then, and it's safe to say we might be talking about a few champions from Arcane today, as to be honest some of them are amongst the best picks in the game. Which brings us to our first champion to talk about in the top lane, and that's of course Ambessa, who's now looking like one of the strongest picks you can play. She had a pretty 50-50 start to her time on the Rift, to be honest, with lots of players learning her and the general player base actually thinking she might need some buffs. However, by the time the second patch came around and she got a few quality of life changes, everybody has seemed to learn how to play her and build her, especially so at higher ranks. And now she actually has some of the most impressive win rates in both the solo lanes in the entire roster. Plus she still has the highest ban rate in the game too, with a whopping 60% so far this patch. Ambessa has crazy mobility, damage, survivability, and honestly a full item Ambessa is incredibly difficult to shut down. So if you're playing her, then keep playing her, because she's in a great spot so far and winning lots of games. If you do want to learn the best Ambessa builds and runes though, then make sure you check out her champion page on our website. And here's a quick taster on screen of what you can expect. Jayce, on the other hand, is not quite performing as well for the majority of ranks. He's definitely a lot better in high elo and has always been really popular here, with his ability to bully lanes and scale up into a pokey bursting beast in the mid to late game. But for now, for most players at lower ranks, he's just not quite worth it unless you really know how to play him. Moving away from Arcane top laners though, Irelia is well and truly back, and her stats have been fantastic since those recent buffs. She's been out of the meta for a while, and this was partly due to her items not being too optimal, but now in the hands of high elo players especially, Irelia is coming out on top in tons of games. She's just one of those picks that can abuse leads better than most, so be careful, or play yourself, whichever floats your boat. So in the top lane S tier we have Aatrox, Ambessa, Camille, Darius, Mundo, Gragas, Irelia, Kennen, Poppy, Riven and Tahm Kench. In the A tier we have strong popular picks like Akali, Renekton and Shen, and Cho'Gath is not one to be underestimated either. In the B tier we have champions that are just generally way better in the hands of one-trick ponies and high elo experts like Yone, Gangplank and Jayce. Then we've also got some other struggling picks here too, like Alawi and NOXUS, who simply just haven't been as effective across the board since their nerfs. Into the jungle next then, and we may as well start with another great pick from Arcane, and that's going to be Ekko, who's risen into a fantastic S tier jungler at pretty much every single rank. He clears quickly, he melts objectives, he can roam around the map pretty quickly, and his ganks really aren't too bad either, especially once he's got a bit of damage under his belt with a few early items. And once he does get those items, his ability to dive onto backlines and one-shot them without too much counterplay just makes him seriously hard to beat, because then he just presses his ultimate and gets back to safety without being punished. Ekko's a great champion to invest some time into because there's loads of different things you'll learn along the way when mastering him. So if it's a champion you've never really played before and looking for something new to play, definitely give him a go. Another one from Arcane is Hwei, and despite her relatively lackluster stats across the board, she's actually still a brilliant pick to go for because of simply what she brings to the table. Her reliable CC and engage is genuinely some of the best in the game. And when you're against those slippery carries or artillery mages that like to play really far back, Hwei is the perfect pick to shut them down, especially when paired with those that can really synergize with her. In the mid lane especially, like Ahri and Lux, these combos and duo Q are simply so hard to beat. Talon has also risen back up to the S tier in both the jungle and the mid lane recently. And if you've played against a good Talon, it makes the Rift a very scary place. This guy can vault around the map, ganking all lanes on the go and turning this into a massive lead that he can snowball and roll over games with. Talon is definitely not an easy jungler to play, and definitely not an easy champion to play really either, but he's incredibly rewarding, and when he's in a good spot like he is now, we'd for sure recommend you to give him a go and see if you like his playstyle, because if you do, it's a lot of free LP. So in the jungle S tier we have Bel'Veth, Ekko, Elise, Graves, Karthus, Kha'Zix, Lee Sin, Nocturne, Talon and Viego. We've also got lots of great options in the A tier too, with things like Fiddlesticks, Kayn, Jarvan, Master Yi, Shaco, Warwick and Wukong, and these are all some champions you should definitely be watching out for. In the B tier we have picks that aren't just quite performing as well for the majority of ranks, with picks like Amumu, Brand, Lilia and Shyvana, just to name a few ones whose nerfs over recent months have definitely hindered them along the way. Into the mid lane next then, and first up let's talk about Swain. And since his recent buffs, he's shot back into a top pick to play. Now, although Swain might be a bit one-dimensional in the way that he plays, this doesn't take anything away from how effective he can be. He's got a decent lane phase with some poke and catch potential, but as games progress, he turns into a raid boss. All he needs is those first few items before he can start running at entire teams, dealing tons of damage, healing all that damage back off, and locking and bursting down his enemies at the same time. So if you haven't played him recently since his buffs, why not? Hwei is proving to be one of the most well-balanced and most consistent champions Riot have released in the recent years, and ever since his release, he's been a great pick to main. He's actually no way near as difficult as everyone first thought he might be, and once you get the hang of his basic abilities and his wave clear, he becomes really easy to be effective with. You've got long range poke, you've got utility, you've got wave clear, you've got burst, you basically have everything you need to slot into any team comp. So if you aren't sure who to main in the mid lane, give Hwei a go. We also wanted to talk about Sylas, who's been one of the most meta-resistant champions all year. It really doesn't seem to matter what items are good, what champions are good, what nerfs or buffs he gets, he's always an S tier pick right now, and this doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. I guess we don't really need to talk too much about why Sylas is good. So all I'm saying is he's still really strong, and if you don't like playing him, you should probably consider banning him, because you're going to be playing against him in every single game. So in the S tier for the mid lane, we have Ahri, Akshan, Ambessa, Cassiopeia, Hwei, Irelia, Lux, Swain, Sylas, Talon, and Vex. In the A tier, we have lots of popular and strong options too, with things like Galio, Anivia, Aurora, Katarina, and Vladimir, who are all proving they all have their place in the right hands or in the right games. The B tier though is mostly just a bunch of picks that aren't quite up there with the big guns, like a recent fan favourite in Victor, who is getting some super juicy updates in patch 14.24 to match his appearance and theme from Arcane, although in reality his kit isn't really changing that much. Okay, so now let's get into the bot lane, and in our opinion, the best AD carry you can play right now at pretty much every rank is Jinx, which is only fitting really. Jinx's build path of Yuntal, Wild Arrows, Infinity Edge and Runaan's is just absolutely insane once it comes online. And the AoE splash damage, crazy attack speed boosts alongside her passive, and just sheer 1v9 potential is up there with some of the best in the game right now. Now AD carries aren't exactly in their best spot at the moment, and there is a massively strong argument to just play mages here instead. But if you are a stubborn AD carry main like me and want to play those pew pew space gliders, Jinx is one of, if not the best option to go for. Corki is seeing a lot of playtime at higher ranks at the moment though, and it seems to be the fact that he's just such a consistent pick throughout all stages of the game. He's got good early burst, he's got a fantastic power spike in the mid game, but he also scales really well into the late game too, packing tons of AoE damage, poke, wave clear, siege potential, and basically everything you need for a weak side, strong side, or whatever kind of game you're playing him into. He also seems to work with a ton of different supports and against so many different lanes. So if you're not really sure who to play and you have fun playing Corki, then just keep calm and Corki on. Jhin also keeps his place in the S tier too, and he's still one of the most popular AD carries in the game. There is unfortunately still a few different drafts where Jhin may struggle with lots of heavy tanks or lots of hard engage, but generally speaking he's still a really consistent pick, and there's always ways you can impact and influence games in any sort of team comp. So in the S tier we have Ashe, Corki, Jhin, Jinx, Karthus and Swain. In the A tier here we have some OTP picks like Draven and Ezreal, as well as some more mages with Hwei and Lux, and then of course Caitlyn as well, who is still an incredibly popular and great pick, but not quite as OP as she was last patch. The B tier is jam-packed full of pretty much every other pick you can play in the bot lane, with Kai'Sa struggling after her nerfs to her and her core items, and picks like Vayne, Kalista and Samira just not really having the best time at the moment. Finally, let's have a look at those supports then, and first up, Poppy still has one of the highest win rates in the game in this role, despite Riot's several attempts to nerf her. Poppy just has such an effective role here where she can not only punish lanes early game with her CC and all-in potential, but it's really her roaming that makes her shine. She's exceptional when it comes to roaming and diving, as she can pin a target down without much counterplay and easily farm her teammates early gold leads and really put her enemies behind at the same time. Set up those hex flashes over walls, dive your enemies under their towers, fight over objectives, and farm some LP along the way. Rell has unfortunately fallen off a cliff this patch with the changes that came in. She's been a bit too OP for too long in pro play with her reliable crowd control, so Riot decided they needed to change that. But unfortunately, in solo queue, her win rate has dropped significantly. And now she moves all the way down from the S tier last patch to the B tier this time. If you're looking to try a new and creative playmaker to go for this patch, then we'd recommend going for Rakan. He has so much to offer with his AoE engage potential and so much shielding and utility and a little bit of sustain as well. And although he takes a bit more practice than some other playmaking supports and engages like Leona, his ceiling is simply so much higher. So when you invest the time into learning him and mastering him, it's just going to be so rewarding and should help you have a new fantastic pick to add to your support champion pool. So this patch, the S tier in support has actually thinned out a bit more than usual, with Braum, Janna, Lulu, Nami and Poppy proving to be just that much better than everybody else right now. The A tier is packed full of super strong choices though, with initiators like Leona, Rakan and Nautilus, more enchanters in Karma and Melio, as well as pokey picks like Zyra and Vel'Koz doing much better than you might think. Underwhelming supports like Renata, Blitzcrank and Yuumi all stay in the B tier for the time being, along with Rell, who we mentioned earlier. Well, that brings us to the end of our patch 1423 tier list update video. Don't forget to click the link below to see the tier list in full on our website and stay up to date with the meta, as well as all the top builds and runes as the patch plays out. Thanks for watching guys, and we'll see you all in the next video. Take care.